All right, awesome. All right, thanks everybody. Hello, Latinos and clinical researchers, for those who are here with us today and those who will be tuning in later. Thank you so much for being here today. We have a special guest. We have Mr. Dirks here. We are going to do a quick introduction before we go into, getting to know a little bit about him. So first off, William was the anesthesiology department chair at the Christ Hospital in Cincinnati for 9 years. He then became president of the medical staff and then vice president of medical affairs until 2005. At that point, he joined Goodwin IRB as COO and then founded uh, Central Clinical Research Services in 2010. He also has an MBA from Kellogg. He had become frustrated with all the mounds of paper, along with the complicated technology platforms available in the clinical testing space. At that point, he took the initiative to develop the iPad-based system that would be simple to understand, intuitive for users, and economical for sponsors, CROs, and sites. He called the platform Central Binders. Please correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm mispronouncing. I want to make sure I'm saying it right.
Yeah, no, that's fine, but that we've changed it to DocuTrial. So
okay, DocuTrial. Okay, thank you. He called the platform Central Binders, and after several improvements and additions, it has evolved into DocuTrial, as you just said. William introduced the platform to his own clinical testing team back in 2017. He started on a Tuesday with his new study, and by the end of the first week, his coordinators came to him to ask if they could move all their studies onto the new platform, which he did over a weekend. Since then, his sites have been paper-free, resulting in increased efficiency and a much happier frontline staff. And as you say, never miss an opportunity to learn. So this is so awesome. Thank you so much for being here today. That's quite a story. Pretty sure Dan, Monica, and Judy and Chris we're all pretty excited to have you here. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Mark. I appreciate that. That was a great introduction.
Yes,
So,
it's an amazing bio.
okay. So like Margot said, I've been through a lot of different roles. And one of the things I wanted to make sure you understand is, when I left Goodwin IRB, I did that to start a research site. And I did that with physician practices in Cincinnati, which is where I worked with physicians who I had known back from my days on the medical staff. And but I did all roles. So I owned it, I managed it. The physicians and the practices were generally the PIs, but there were occasional studies where I became a PI for various reasons. But I also like to jump in and be coordinator. And I would do that not infrequently. I drew blood, did EKGs, all those fun things. So, with that background, I've got just a few slides to start with here. And let me pull that up and then I'll share my screen. Okay, so. Okay, can you still hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right. So, like I say, I have just a couple of slides, but and what I wanted to talk about, and you guys let me know if there's something I'm missing. But first of all, I want to talk about why you should think about going electronic. I think all of us have certainly thought about it, if not done it, through COVID. But I want to give kind of a little more background behind that. And then also how you might go about it and some things to think about, especially when you're shopping. I actually have a shopping checklist that I'll kind of talk to you about. So I see three main reasons why you should go electronic. And probably the first and biggest one is site selection. Sponsors and CROs are now using that as one of their criteria. So they will ask you, do you have an electronic system? If so, which one? Our system's been used with many of the major sponsors, and we've never had an issue with that. But certainly in the competitive marketplace that we're in, every additional thing that you can do to help get your site be one of those preferred sites is something you need to think about. The other thing is that I think the electronic systems have the capability of improving quality. And there are several different ways that that can occur. But on the flip side, it can also hinder quality. And I'll talk about that through the discussion here, especially as we show you how our system works. There's something called a barrier event. And a barrier event is really kind of anything that distracts your attention. And it was kind of first described as the doorway effect. And I'm sure all of you have had the time where you got up from your desk and you walked through the door and you got into the next room and you said, why did I come out here? You forgot. And part of what's happening there is as you transition from one thing to another, and it's not just a physical doorway, it's any kind of event, your brain starts focusing on that new event and forgets some of the things previously. And I think a lot of the systems, and this is one of the things I saw way back when I was president of medical staff and the vice president of medical affairs of the hospital, was when we were putting electronic medical records in. And if you look at an electronic source system, it is basically an electronic medical record. And if you have any questions about how that's gone, it's been a real issue both in quality and efficiency. And I'll refer you to an article called Death by 10,000 Clicks. And you can find it on the internet, or if you want, I'll be happy to send it to you. But it talks about a lot of these different barrier events. So anything that you can do to reduce that, and you have that with paper too, right? The papers fall on the floor. You've forgotten, where you were, you have to shuffle everything back together, et cetera. The third reason I think you should go electronic is to improve efficiency. And what I would caution you about there is when you're looking at improving efficiency, don't just look at the efficiency with the patient. I think that's important. But there's also the efficiencies behind the scenes, and we'll talk about that also. What it takes to get you to the point that you can actually see a patient. What do you have to do to create your source, et cetera? So, and we will go through all those. So any questions so far? Okay, one of the things I like to tell people who are in the research business, especially on the quality piece, is that, when I'm acting as a physician working with a patient about their blood pressure, if I make a mistake in the electronic medical record, that affects that patient. But here in research, if you make a mistake or you forget to document something, that can have an effect on millions of people, right? It can make an effect on whether a drug gets approved or not, or if it does get approved, whether or not you have a lot of people with certain side effects that didn't get captured properly, et cetera. So what I'm going to do now is show you, they're kind of two basic pieces to DocuTrial, but our system covers a lot of different pieces, but the two basic pieces are the electronic source and the electronic investigator site file. And then everything else kind of builds off of that. And so what I'm going to do first is show you the electronic source and how easy it can be. And one of the things we like to say is that, they're the Simply Safe alarm systems out there. And we like to say that this is your Simply Safe toolbox, because as a coordinator, when you're in with that patient, you have access to everything. You have access to the source that you're using. You have access to their ConMeds, to their previous AEs, to the protocol, to the inclusion, exclusion criteria, et cetera. You don't have to carry a big binder in there, and you don't have to carry that little mini protocol to refer to. It's all available to you. And what I'm going to show you here first, this is, again, is our electronic source. And what I'm showing you here is an actual source document from a study we were involved in. And the key to this is that it should look like your other source does. And that's because all we're doing is you take your source, and I know every kind of site has their own way they like to do things, and they've been doing it that way for ages, and they don't necessarily want to change. And with this, you don't have to, because we just take your source and you take your source, make it up the way you want, and put it into a PDF format, and then put it into the system, and then you can pull it up. Like Margot said, we're using an iPad-based system, and there are reasons for that I'm happy to go into, but we found it very reliable. And so what we do then is I just take this, I've got my source, and you can see this site, they like to work as a team. So they have, somebody will draw the blood, somebody will do the EKG, et cetera. And you need to have a way for them to mark down what they did and to attest to that. And so off on the left, you have a lot of columns for initials. And that's one of the things that you can do. But basically we use the iPad and we use the Apple Pencil. And you can see up in the upper right hand corner, I can just start writing here. And then you can fill in down here. And you just take your finger and you can move the page up. You can also set it up so you can go side to side if you prefer that.
That's really great. Super convenient. Do you mind real quickly kind of delving into why the iPad system?
Yeah, so the main reason is that the iPad Pencil works basically like a pen. You can see there's no lag time, which I found frustrating with some of the other systems. The other thing is with the Slate, and it's been a few years since I've actually looked at it, but when I did look at it, you can see I have a little halo here. Mm-hmm. If I put the pencil on erase over here, it makes a halo just so it's easier to erase. But the pencil, there's no halo here. And it just writes, and like I say, there's no lag time. So it's really like writing with a pen and paper. And that's the main reason. Okay. I always like to show the eraser. That's my coordinator's favorite thing. It's, it's what makes it different from paper, right? You can't erase it. With this, you can until you save it. And then once you save it, the image gets burned in, and I can show you.
Is it an app, or is it that's stored locally on the iPad, or is it cloud-based?
So the system itself is cloud-based, but what we're in that right now is an app, and I'll show you the cloud-based piece too. But right now it's an app that you download. We give it to you free. You just get the iPad and you download it, and it's there.
But then when you save the documents, does it get uploaded back for your storage?
Yeah, it goes back to the cloud. Yeah.
Okay.
And you can see across the top, I have 3 tabs open. You can have up to 10. So you can have your source document, your ICF, your ConMeds, your AEs, up there at a time. This one I did previously. You can see if I try to erase, it doesn't erase. I've got the halo there, but I can't erase any of it. So if I need to make a change, if I got the date wrong, I use my GCP, cross out and initial and date, and save it back. Okay. The other thing that I like to show people is, we have the physical exam as part of our source documents. And, if it's on paper, the physician walks in, he fills out the paper and he walks out. With a lot of the other systems, the coordinator has to log out. The physician has to log in. He does his thing, then he has to log out and the coordinator has to log back in. Here, as long as you have a signature line so that he can attest that he did this, then you don't need to go through all that log in, log out. Let's see.
We actually had a quick question. Just they're curious to know that if, I guess once you officially, enter everything in, does your system have some sort of, I guess, portal where it goes to, where this information can go straight to the sponsor after completing the visit, or How does that work exactly?
Yeah, so there are kind of two ways that can happen. One is we can give the monitor or anybody at the sponsor access so they can see the actual source document. We do also have a way to capture the data so that they can get it.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Mhm. The other thing I like to say when I was talking about barriers, one of the things I have found, especially when I was being a coordinator, is that patients aren't always linear. I like to say, which means they don't know how the script goes on our source documents, right? We're going through things and we ask them questions and I like to tell the story. I had a patient where I had put her down supine for the EKG, and previously I'd asked her about adverse events and she said no. Well, she's laying there staring at the ceiling for 5 minutes, right? Waiting for the EKG to happen. And she says, oh yeah, by the way, I had a headache 2 weeks ago. I don't know if that's important. Well, what do you do with that? So, on paper, you kind of fumble through the paper and go to the page where you want it, or you pull out a sticky note, which of course we're not supposed to do, but I know people do. So what I can do though is I can quickly write headache here, or I can go back a page and I can just erase this no and go to yes and put headache 2 weeks ago. And then I can go on and then I can come back and, I've got a reminder there to ask her, okay, what did you take for it? How long did it last? Etc. And then I can come back and I can erase this. And those are a lot of the things I think really make this, that, like I say, reduce those barriers that distract you from what you're trying to do. And the other thing is that, with a lot of the other systems, you also have kind of a keyboard type entry system, which, takes your eyes off the patient sometimes. And here, it's basically like paper. You've got a tablet and you're just writing. And so you can pay attention to the patient. I think you can connect better with the patient. So
I agree. I've actually dealt with a lot of systems even prior to research. I was in the clinical industry for about 10 years. When we used a system a while back, we had one that had pen like this. And I preferred it much more than the keyboard system. So I completely agree. We have a question actually. Does the data get captured in a searchable database?
it can be, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So we also have the capability, you can, if you prefer to type notes. So actually, my couple of my coordinators liked it when they came down here to write the note. They like to type that. So they would take this back to their office, when they could think a little bit more, and you can take a type here and you can type anything in, and then you can move this around anywhere you want on the page. You can get it to line up with the lines, etc.
Bill, how does it handle labs and EKGs?
That is a great question, because it's one of those things a lot of people don't think about. So labs, the best way to do that actually, and I'll move next to the, so let me just go ahead and do that now. And this is our demo site. I'm logged in as an administrator, so you're going to see more than you would normally see. But in this project section here is where you would have all your studies. And so what you can do, we put a patient folder in, we label it 0.1, so it's always at the top of the list. But you can have a patient in here and you can drag and drop those lab results, especially if they're in a PDF format, and this is the electronic ISF, by the way. This is using a browser, and you can use any browser on any type machine. So a computer, a phone, or your iPad, or a slate even. but you can drag and drop those in here. And then the physician, if they have an iPad with an Apple Pencil, they can pull them up and mark them up and initial and sign.
Okay, awesome.
I've got a
Okay.
question.
Sure.
I like this interface very much. My question is, how do you, I guess, extract it to put it into the data capture system as a sponsor? Do you print it off, the information, and then put it into their EDC, or how does it work? Like the connection, is there a way to do that or no?
So let me show you that. So here is the data capture. Okay. And so what we do is, let me back up here a little bit. If you look at this source document, I put red boxes around the things. You know, when you look at a source document, there's about 20% of the information on there that needs to go to NDDC, right? It's a relatively small amount. So we identify that. I've just put red boxes here. And then we can set up the system so it basically takes a picture of that section. When you click save on that from the app, it saves the document, takes the pictures, and puts them into a database here. All right. Now they're handwritten, but what you can do over here on the right then, and this is kind of like you do your EDC entry, although keep in mind that this can be done by anybody, right? It can be done really almost anywhere in the world, or you can have somebody that all they do is data entry. So over here on this blood pressure, if I click that blue icon, I get the box up here, and I can put, you know, that data in here. So I can type that in, and then I save it. And then you'll see this bronze checkbox there. That is for the CRA to do her, let's say she's doing her SDV, right? She's verifying the data. She looks at that picture of 120/80, sees the text of 120/80. She clicks that box and it locks that data, all right? And then all of that can be exported in a report here. It can go into an Excel file basically. And then we also have the capability of queries. If she thinks there's something wrong here, she can, you know, just type a note here, select who that note should go to, click root. They get an email notification. Hey, there's this question there. Why don't you go in and check on that? And then you can go in and add it, and there's an audit trail with all of that. So that's really the query system that goes with this. So the idea again is, you know, one of the problems with a lot of the other systems is you're kind of trying to do EDC entry at the time that you're seeing the patient. And here we're saying that's not the right time, right? The time when you're with the patient, you're supposed to be paying attention to the patient, and the EDC entry can occur later. And like I say, it can occur by anybody. And in fact, it's possible for us if a sponsor came along and wanted it, where we can ship each one of these little pictures out and to somewhere around the world, and there are people that are there just waiting for it, and they'll key it in for you for 1/10 of a penny. And then you come back and you do the SDV and lock the data.
Bill, one question. Is this compliant, like HIPAA and also FDA approved, or?
Yes. So the key to it is 21 CFR Part 11 compliant, and I'll talk a little bit more about that also. And as far as HIPAA, you know, as long as you're not sending out somebody's address or their phone number from here, it's not a problem. And you know, people they may not get all this data. They may only get one piece of it, so they can't put stuff together, which is one of the other things that HIPAA is worried about.
Awesome.
So
Thank you. And
yeah.
I have another question, sorry.
Okay.
How does this, like, because some people or many people don't know about the Alcoa-C, and what's the convenience of having this when applying these guidelines?
Well, I think you know, certainly you know, you've got the attribution. You're doing it, you're doing it right away. One of the things I will say is that you can leave these documents open for a long time, actually. I don't recommend that. We recommend that you save it, but of course, then when you save it, it goes directly to the system. So I think that, from that standpoint, legibility, that's, I guess that's up to you. That's where a keyboard might be better, but it takes away from other things. And I think you lose more by going to a keyboard than you do with the legibility with a pencil. So did I answer the question?
Oh, Monica, you're on mute.
I was trying to unmute. Thank you very much. Yes, before you answer it.
Okay. The other question that was asked was about EKGs. They would be the same as labs. And one of the things I will say, though, is that the system, I have not found a file type that the system can't handle. It can handle X-ray files, et cetera, Excel files, Word files, whatever you want. Most, to be able to mark them up on the iPad, they have to be a PDF. But other than that, there's really no restriction. So I'll show you a little bit about the ISF now. And so each study is a project in here. And you can name this your project however you want. And it's a folder system. And again, you can set this up however you want. I know some sites like that, they have their set kind of tabs for their ISF. And we tended to like using, we would do the sponsor tab format because it was easier for the monitors when they came in. But you can do either. And you just simply make this up. You just, click on new folder and you name it whatever you want. And click save. And I already have one of those, so it doesn't like duplicates. And so you can see I have a test2 folder. You can drag and drop documents, or you can pull them up from your file system. And so, like I said, when we converted everything over on the weekend, we already had a lot of the stuff electronic, all the protocols and all of our source, source templates, et cetera. And I just dragged and dropped, and you can drag and drop, hundreds at a time. And it will take a little bit of time for it to put them all in, but it will do it. And you can drag and drop to any one of these folder icons also. So you just, if you know where it's going to go. Let's see, within here, actually, let's see, we'll go here. So with documents, there's several things you can do. This details area, this shows the audit trail down here. This actions log is our audit trail. One of the things is that we keep all versions of the documents so that once you write on it and save it, we've got a copy. And then if you pull it up and change the date, we've got a copy of that too. So if there's any question, you can pull them up side by side and see what the changes were. But you can see it shows who did what and what time. Let's see here. There's an option for electronic signatures, and that's another feature that I think gives our system flexibility. Is, of course, we can do handwritten signatures with the Apple Pencil so that your physician can sign this physical exam or sign the EKG, but we also have electronic signatures. So any document can be routed up to 3 different people for an electronic signature, and it goes sequentially. And this is good for things like training documents, where you've got, let's say, a newsletter, and you've got, you can send it up to 3 people, like I say, and just ask them to review it, and then they just electronically sign it. And so here, if this document were routed to me, I would just click that sign thing there, I've got three options: reviewed, approved, or certified copy. I can put comments if I want, but I don't have to. I click password. Of course, my password's saved. And then I can just hit sign and it will sign it. And then it will notify the next person. They'll get an email, and within that email is a hyperlink, and it takes, if they click on that, it takes them right to the document, and they can open it up, look at it, and then sign it. One of the things you'll see here is one of the options to certify copy, and I think a lot of people aren't aware of this. And I think it's still questionable, but I know at least one sponsor has enforced it. And kind of my take on the regulations, and it's not clearly spelled out, but certainly if you look at ICH GCP, one of the things they say is that if a document type changes, you need to certify the new type. So a lot of people are familiar with medical records, right? You get you get a medical record, you download it from an EMR and you print it off. Well, that printed copy you need to certify as equivalent to the electronic copy. And you
I think we lost Bill for a quick minute.
While we're waiting for Bill, if anybody has questions, I mean, this eSource, eReg, this is obviously the way of the future. What remains to be seen is who controls the data. And that's one of the questions I want to ask Bill. Going forward, it's going to be increasingly important for sites to have control over their data, not just the study data, because obviously they're getting hired by the drug companies to provide that data, but to keep their own data, keep their own metrics for themselves. And I'd be curious to see who actually has access to this data. And at the end of the day, a very important conversation is who owns the data. I don't know
Yep,
if
completely agree.
Bill is back. I'm not sure.
Also, my name's Adeline. So,
Hi, Adeline.
can this data, like, can it be installed in any other like platforms or media other than just the iPad?
I don't know about DocuTrial specifically. I know there are others that allow any web-enabled browser for you to access the eSource and the eReg. I'm not sure, Monica. I don't know if Monica's here.
See, if it's cloud-based and it is it's stored in multiple servers, can I be able to retrieve the data on my laptop?
I think with cloud-based ones you are. I don't assume this one is tied to any device, but that would be a good question for Bill.
If it outputs a CSV file, you could then use the data in all types of applications.
Right.
I'm wondering if there was maybe an error issue or what's going on, because we're all perfectly fine. Doesn't show that he's muted or anything.
I was able to hear him. He was talking, right? The audio is okay, I guess.
Yeah, I think he just dropped off, but could be bad connectivity or storms in the middle of the country. Oh,
Maybe.
he's getting back in. So let's see.
Okay, awesome.
But yeah, these are questions, guys, to keep in mind. Okay, let's ask. Feel free to ask. Ask questions.
Dan, this is Tom Ryan. Do you know if sites are currently challenged with their metrics right now? You had mentioned like in the future that they should have those. I wonder if they've already been asked, but they'll be asked more often.
I think so. I mean, I think as things get more digital, sites are going to be expected to keep track of these things and have specific answers and maybe even de-identified data that they can share from previous studies.
And
So,
I think I know it's a lot of extra work, but I think even at that, sites should want to do it, just because I think, remember, Dan, you spoke about this at one time in one of your other podcasts, where at some point, this data could even be monetized for the site, right? as time passes. So I definitely think that this is something that all sites should consider doing. Somebody said he's back. Bill, are you there?
Back. Yeah, sorry.
Awesome. No worries. No worries.
Where I lost you, but
No, you're completely fine. No worries. Dan, you had a question for Bill?
Yeah, Bill, we actually, I talk to sponsors a lot now, and they're all pushing for digitization, and that's fine. We're even entering the era of freemium digitization. So, I'm sure the big player on the block, Viva, where they're basically giving Site Vault for free. And there's others too. I don't like to pick on them. I actually own their stock for what it's worth, but there's rumors they're going to do the same thing with eSource. So I guess if sites are going to pay for this service, and this is a question not just for you, but all the vendors in this space who kind of play in this vertical, what's the advantage? Because I understand free is not free. I understand that as a site, free means usually I'm giving up my data to a third party who can then do with it as they please, as long as they're keeping up with HIPAA and 21 CFR, which is not that difficult to do, but the power is in the data. So how do sites get empowered to control their own data? Is that even an option? Is that something you guys are thinking about? This is what sponsors are discussing at conferences. I mean, you go to any conference, this is what they're talking about.
yeah. Certainly as a site, I wouldn't feel comfortable with somebody selling my data of any type. And so we don't do that for anything that we have. I would be, I don't know what Viva's, how they're planning to monetize it. But certainly selling data sounds like a problem to me.
Mhm.
So I certainly think, a lot of the patients are going to want to know where their data is going.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. It's also for the sites, we're expected to keep metrics. I think once eSource is a standard, it's going to be expected that we're able to share access to our data, even though it's de-identified, at least so they could look at our enrollment numbers and confirm in a de-identified manner that, yes, the feasibility matches up with what we're seeing in the source. Or even like less granular than that, just the numbers, much like a CTMS would kind of plug into or be a layer on top of the eSource. So, and I don't know if that was coming up in your presentation, but is that something DocuTrial is talking about internally?
Yeah, I mean, we have CTMS, so I can show you that here. We have a patient.
Awesome. That's for sure.
So we have a patient module here, and I need to turn my screen. And we can just add a patient, and you can put in all your different demographics here. Medical history, you can put in your diagnoses, and these, again, the site gets to decide what diagnoses they want to have in their list, or we can make you whatever list you want, but this way it works for you. Then if we go here and I can select a patient, I can assign them to a project, and they can be assigned to more than one project.
I'm so sorry, Bill. Sorry to interrupt you, but I don't see it on the screen share.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
And just to answer Andrea's question, are CRAs able to review the EISFs remotely? From what I understood, yes. Right, Bill?
Yes, they are. So, okay. Now, okay, you still able to hear me?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So now we'll go back here. Now are you seeing my screen?
No,
No,
not
you're
yet. Mm-mm. Dan, okay, not yet. There you go.
All right. Okay. So you can have your patient, and then, like I said, they can be in multiple projects, and then communications here. This is where, they called in and they want to schedule for a certain date. You can set a date, and then that'll end up on the calendar over here. And each of the projects is color coded. We also have supplies, and you're seeing all these are red because they're out of expiration. It gives you a warning if you're coming up on expirations or low quantities. And these again can be whatever you want them to be as far as supplies. And there's a way to set up your source so that when you check off that the labs were done, it will automatically subtract that lab kit off of your supply list here. Finance, there's a way to set this up to create, an invoice line for everything when the visit's been completed. The physician, when he does the physical exam, you can set it up again to trigger an invoice line to pay the physician for that. So, any questions about that? You can see different, and it will just, and then you can, sort them by project. Etc. And so for those things, again, you don't need a keyboard, you don't need to key that in. You can set up the source so that it automatically will do that for you. You can record payments, so if you're up to date on that. So any other questions about this?
Let me see if there was any more dropping in.
There's out here on the right and the lower, you can see a yellow. That's our sticky note system. So there's no audit trail on this. And once this is resolved, it disappears. So it's truly like the sticky notes that the monitors put on a page. When you fix it, then you can say it's marked as resolved, and then it goes back to a white square. You can also, if the FDA calls today and says we're coming tomorrow, you can search for all of the sticky notes and take care of all of them and clear them out of the system so that they never see them. And like I said, there's no audit trail on that. That's really just an internal communication.
Awesome, thank you. And so I guess if that was it, I kind of would like to ask, if any sites are interested, would they get in contact with you, or would you direct them to anybody's more specific?
Yeah, they can just contact me. I'll throw that up here real quick. You can email me or call me. I'll be happy to talk to you. And I'll come back to that, but just a couple more things. I think there are things that, when you look at systems, you should look at the things that I think they should be a must-have. And some of them, of course, any system that's advertising themselves should be 21 CFR Part 11 compliant. But one of the things you should ask is, what are their expectations of you as a site to validate the system? And, I heard a talk from somebody who's a consultant for one of the other systems out there a couple of weeks ago, and she was saying that every site needs to have somebody who is responsible for validation, and you need to have a bunch of SOPs around that, and you need to do all this testing. And I will tell you, I don't believe that, and they're, especially with our system, the way it is laid out and the simplicity of it makes the validation is simple, and it's something that we do and take care of for you, and we will stand behind that. And if there's any question, you send the FDA to us. I will be happy to talk to them about that, or a sponsor. And we have, sponsors will have questionnaires about, does the system have this or that? And we're happy to help you with that. Other things that should have, of course, is security. I think the electronic signatures is a good thing to have. Ease of use should be your top priority, right? It should be the easiest system for the coordinators to use. They're the ones on the front line. We have a site that used one of the other systems, and they had some monitors come in and say, hey, your quality has slipped a little bit. And they think that it was due to the fact that they were using that other electronic system. And I don't think you'll see that with us, because ours works basically like paper. The ability to route documents, notifications. I think I may have gotten cut off about certifying paper copies, but I think that's something that should happen. Let's see, it should be able to copy and move things around. Of course, it has to have an audit trail. It should be easy for you to find. And one of the questions is, who owns the data? Do you get the data? I mean, Dan mentioned this, but do you get the data at the end of the study? And if so, what's it cost you to do that? For us, it's your data. We even say that in our contract, and you get the data at the end of the study. We'll send that to you on a flash drive. It's yours forever. And there's no cost for that for us. Training is a big thing that I think a lot of people don't think about. How long does it take first to get trained initially? And then how often do you have to retrain or get training on updates? And with our system, typically we can train people in an hour to an hour and a half. We had a site in the middle of COVID where they were doing a study at a hospital, and they had not worked in the hospital before. And they were worried about shuffling papers back and forth, because of COVID exposure. And so so we signed a contract on a Monday afternoon. We scheduled training, and this was at their request, training for Thursday afternoon, which I did, and it took about an hour and a half. And they then trained up the hospital staff. And on Saturday, they enrolled their first patient. And so I think, you need to look at, when you look at a system, ask them, is there a training plan, and look at what is that going to take? How often do they do updates? Do retraining need to occur with updates, et cetera? Because that's one of those can be one of those hidden costs. Support is another thing where there can be hidden costs. How much support do you get? With us, it's 24/7, and there's no additional cost. And the reason we can do that is our system is so easy to use that we rarely get calls. I get maybe an email a week. So we don't have to have a huge staff sitting around waiting to answer your questions. And as a site manager, it was important to me to have pricing that works. And so I know everybody wants to know pricing. Ours, we make it simple. It's $750 a month, and that's unlimited studies, unlimited users. And that includes, all the CRAs that you need to put on there, et cetera. And we don't charge for training. We don't charge for the data at the end of the study. That's just what it is. So you can budget for it.
So I have a couple of questions about your pricing model.
Yeah.
So is there like a startup per trial for it, or is it just $750 flat? That's it.
$750 flat. So that's what I say, because, some of these things, the way we're doing things are because, I was a manager of a site, and, I was using actually one of the other systems for CTMS, and it was so much for 10 studies. Well, the 11th study came along, and it was this little ditzel study that wasn't going to pay me much. And I'm like, I can't justify paying for another 5 studies for this little study, but I wanted to do it because I thought it was going to get me the phase 3 study. And so then I'm running 2 systems, right? I'm running their system and whatever else I was using, spreadsheets or whatever. We want you to have a system that you can jump in, and use for everything. And I
Okay,
think,
so does that include regulatory by chance?
yes, it does.
Okay, and does that include all users and all patients for 750? Is that per month or per study?
Per month.
Per month,
Per
okay.
study. Per
Okay,
month.
so 750 includes everything. There is never an additional charge.
No, the only additional is the iPads. And that we recommend you buy your own. I mean, that's what everybody else has done. You can get an iPad and a pencil that will work for you for $500.
Okay.
One-time expense. But other than that, no, that's all inclusive.
So it sounds very reasonable, so long as the site probably has more than one study, I would guess. There's probably a break-even point. And I'm just giving food for thought to the audience.
Sure.
If you have a limited scope in terms of number of studies you're doing, $750 a month probably would not be beneficial to you. There's probably other companies that may offer a product that's priced better for you. But I bet you if you're doing 3 or 4 more studies a year, it makes more sense here with this system. That's
We have 2
just my
questions.
thoughts.
Well,
Kathy.
yeah. Just remember, it's not just the 3 studies you get this year, but it also includes the 3 studies you had last year that are
Sure.
still going on. You know, the
Sure.
the one that I was supposed to have closed in May, and it's not going to close till October now, right? I'm not paying any
Right.
extra. So,
I mean, I'm just saying you have to do the math as an individual
yep, absolutely.
and figure out what works best for you.
Right.
Thank you, Bill. We have 2 questions. So does the EISF have document tracking capabilities?
I guess I need some clarification of what you mean by document tracking. I mean, everything that happens to that document is part of the audit trail.
Okay. For example, well, that was a question by Ayman. So, Iman. So I'm thinking that probably what she was trying to ask if is, for example, if the document, like if we have different versions, we will be able to see the different versions. And on top of that, for example, if a document is going to expire, is this going to send us like a alarm or something letting us know?
Okay. Yes, that's a great answer. Great question. So yes, all versions. I can show you here. If I go to this details page, you can see here document versions. So we save all versions. Now you also can have a different version with a different name. You add a 1 or a letter to the end of it. But here we save all document versions, and you can open any one of these versions.
And how about the alarms? Like, for example, if the document is about to expire, does it has any way that we can track that? Like, I mean, it will be very helpful. Obviously.
That's very helpful for things like medical licenses and training, et cetera. When you load the document up, you get an option to put an expiration date, but you can also go to this details page, and you can see down here where you can't see where I'm pointing, but about halfway down it says expiration date. It says not specified. I can edit that. I can click on here. I can set an expiration date and then save that. And then it will send an email. It sends an email, I think it's a month before expiration and then 1 week before expiration.
Oh, that's great. And then we have another 2 more questions. So can you easily switch over to DocuTrial in the middle of that study, or do you have to start with a new study?
No, and I think that's another great question. I think it's something you need to ask all the people when you're shopping. And the answer with DocuTrial is you can do it in the middle of the study. And so we did that with all of our studies. Again, the source is easy to do. You don't have to recreate it. You just take it, you've probably got it in a Word version. You just save it as a PDF version and you put it in there. Anything that's already electronic, you can just, drag and drop in and then move from that point forward fully electronic. You've still got the paper. And if you want to, you can go back and scan that and put it in the system. For some smaller studies, I did that. For bigger ones, it's still easy to do with our system, but it's a lot of scanning, et cetera. And that's, if that's something you want to do, that's great, but you don't have to. But things, almost all of us now have, say, the protocol electronically, right? And you can easily put that in here and have that and all your source documents and move forward that way.
Okay, and can you modify the documents on like for example, a document that needs to be updated? Can you modify that document on the platform, or you have to create a brand new document and then upload it?
So yes, you need to, so what you could do, let's say, well, let's see, sure I have a Word document, but if I pull up a Word document on here, I can download it, fix it, and then go back in here and this update here, I can just drag the new version in here and then it will automatically update that.
Oh, great. I actually have a question in regards to the eReg binder. So for example, obviously not, does this has access for people to sign it electronically?
So yes, anybody, so monitors cannot sign electronically, but any of the coordinators or PIs can. So yes.
Okay, and then I have a question about one specific document, the Delegation of Authority log. Since that document has to be signed by several people, can you do it in this platform?
Okay, so the answer is yes. So there are two ways. Again, this works like paper, so you can scan that paper form and put it on here and then have everybody sign like they normally would. My personal recommendation, we'll be happy to give you a copy of what we've done, is we make an individual DOA log for each person. And then we route it to them for an electronic signature. We fill in their numbers, route it for an electronic signature, and then it goes to the PI, and the PI signs it electronically. And then at the end of the study, you route it back to the PI and he signs the end of delegation.
Oh, that's a wonderful thing, because I haven't seen that before.
Yeah.
And then, sorry, I have the questions now. So the other question is, for example, if we have a document that has a mistake, like a typo, that's the one that you were showing in the previous one. We can just modify it and then I don't know how to explain this. Like, can we modify it without downloading it and then uploading it again? So can it be modified in the platform, or it has to be like basically download the document, modify it, and then upload it again?
Yeah, it does, unfortunately. We don't have
Oh,
a way
okay.
within here, unless you're using the app and the pencil. Like I said, you can make the corrections that way, but with type.
Oh, okay, got it.
Yeah.
And then, okay, so also in the eReg, for example, that we upload all the staff members, the CVs and all the like medical licenses, GCPs, and all of this. So we have to upload it every time we have a new study, or can we share those same documents throughout all the studies that we have?
Yeah, so what we usually do, and I don't have it here on the demo, but we usually create what's called a medical license CV training folder. And then you can put everything in there, and then we can give the CRAs access so they can see what's in there. But the other thing you can do, if you need to, and you shouldn't need to if you have that folder, but you can take any, let's see, I can take multiple documents here and I can copy them over to any study and even multiple studies. So click here, I can click off and say where I want to go. And again, you can see I can do it in multiple places and it will make a copy in all of those places if you want to do that, but you don't need to. With that one folder that everybody can see, then you only need to have it one place. And then when we send you the data, what we do is we copy that MLCV training with the data from the study.
Okay, so we have another question related to this one. So do you have the capability to use the central file binder to house all the CVs and licenses that will carry to all the trials?
Yes.
I think that's the answer, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and then we have 2 more questions.
Okay.
So have any large sponsor okay to use this DocuTrial?
The answer is yes. We've been using it for 4 years now, and it's been used with a lot of major sponsors: Pfizer, AstraZeneca, Merck. Let's see, who else? Asai. I mean, a lot of the majors. Eli Lilly, Sanofi Pasteur, Allergan. I mean, I think we've got more than 20 sponsors. Like I say, we've never had a sponsor say, no, you can't use it.
Oh, okay. And then one of my last questions, probably I will have more, but for now, like, for example, let's say if you're completing all the regulatory documents and as part of the startup documents, we have the financial disclosure form, right? That document requires, besides the person signing, they have to complete the document. How can this happen?
Yeah, so okay, I'm hesitating because I mean, I know they're supposed to fill them out, but we always fill them out for them. We ask them what the answer is. We fill it out for them, and then we route it electronically to them, and they can sign it electronically. We have an upgrade coming that would allow you to also, if you require them to fill it out, to fill out the box and then sign it.
Okay, so basically, if the person is signing it, it's because they are accepting that what it was completed is true.
Right. They're supposed to review it and say, yep, it's either right or not. We have in our system, if you route a document to somebody and they review it and say, hey, this is wrong, they can reject it. They can reject it, and then you'll get notified, hey, there's something wrong with this. And they can tell you what's wrong with, they could type in, hey, the answer should be yes here. And then you can fix it and route it back to them.
Okay. One as part of the Alcoa-C, one of the acronyms refers to any error that we have. It doesn't have to overshadow the actual correction, right? So, for example, if we have a correction, if we have to make a correction on something, the previous information will still be available for the monitor to see.
Yeah, so if you look, all of our corrections are really done on the iPad with a pencil, and so you need to again, once it gets saved, it gets burned in there. You can't erase it. So you need to line through it, initial and date it, just like you would on paper. And so yes, they can see the previous annotation.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody has any more questions?
Well, I think that's it, Monica. Actually, yeah, there's another one. Are there any preset templates for eReg?
So you can create your own, or if you want, we can create them. We don't have them in the system. I mean, like I say, you just make a folder, but you can create your own and then copy that over if you want.
Bill, do you guys offer the service also to create the source document for the client?
It's a good question. And, it's interesting to me that the other companies are doing that, which kind of indicates to me that it may not be as easy as they tell you it is to create source. Again, this is, you're creating your own source like you did yesterday or last week. So that hasn't changed. I do know people who do create regular source, and I'd be happy to refer you to them if you want to hire somebody for that. But it's not something that we see as a need for DocuTrial, because you had somebody last week who was creating source for you, whoever that is. They don't have to learn anything new. They just keep creating source the way they've been doing it.
Thank you for that.
Mhm.
Does anybody has any other? Okay, yeah, we have more questions. Okay, have you worked with a sponsor using eTMF platforms, and if so, what have the challenges been?
So we have not. I believe our system could be used as a sponsor eTMF. We're trying to get them to do that. One of the things we're trying to do is get sponsors to utilize this system so that everybody's kind of on the same platform. We have not, we haven't had a sponsor ask us to try and integrate with their eTMF, I guess is the answer there.
Thank you. We have a very good question by Andrea. Have any sites been FDA audited but that have used this platform?
They have not. They've been lucky, I guess, so far. There have been sponsor auditors, but there have not been FDA auditors.
And how that the outcome has been with the sponsor audits?
Yeah, there have not been any problems.
Great. Well, I think we have very good questions. The audience has asked very, very good questions. Thank you, everybody, for participating and asking questions. And does anybody has any other question to Bill?
Well, thank you. There were some great questions there, certainly.
Yeah, thank you, everybody.
Yes, thank you so much, Bill. Really, thank you. This has been amazing. I really appreciate it. A great way to start off the series. We hope to have you on here soon again for sure. Monica, Dan, Chris, anybody have anything else to say before we close it off?
Yeah, I will say I do have it. Like I say, I have a checklist for things to look for in a electronic source and ISF system. If you'd like, just email me and I'll be happy to send that to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Bill. Appreciate it. And thank you, everybody, for saying that. Very informative. Yes, I agree. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Bill. We really appreciate it. We look forward to working with you again soon. Everybody, thank you so much. And we look forward to y'all attending the next tech series. Thank you and have a great night.